Thank you for joining us for this Monday edition of the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast. It's time for the weekend recap. Good weekend for MMA, a good bounce back weekend for MMA after what was probably, I'm just going to go out and say it, last weekend might have been one of the worst weekends of MMA that I've watched in my time as a fan.
Bit lackluster.
Yeah, even though there was multiple cards for both to be pretty bad. And, for this card on paper to be lackluster, but it completely delivered, in my opinion.
Yep.
I think that's a good bounce back for the UFC. However, the weekend did not belong to the UFC or to MMA for that matter. It belonged to the good sport of boxing. Everybody's favorite. Everybody's favorite sport, right, Dom?
Yes, of course.
We had a huge heavyweight bout that went down Saturday night between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. And while we're an MMA podcast, we don't really get into the boxing too much unless you got the crossover for MMA stars. I thought I would just give my thoughts on the fight real quick just because I happened to watch it, and since it is such a big fight, I felt like it was kind of worth talking about. It was a fantastic fight. I'm not going to really add anything new to the discussion. Ultimately, I am a casual boxing fan, so can't really offer much that anybody else is going to tell you. But it was an awesome fight, one of the best fights probably I've ever seen. I'm sure there's better ones, but it was fantastic. Both guys just showed a lot of heart. Considering this was a heavyweight trilogy with the kind of stakes it had, I think it completely delivered, and it was really the only way this trilogy could end. I've seen all three of these bouts in their trilogy, and the first fight was back and forth. That's when Wilder was champion, Fury the challenger. You had that great moment, and I want to say the 10th or 11th round when Wilder drops Tyson Fury, and it looks like Fury's just out. And then, like the Undertaker, he rises from the dead, and then and then kind of puts it on Wilder for the rest of the fight. Ends in a draw because boxing.
Right.
So then you have the rematch. Again, Wilder champion, Fury challenger, and Tyson Fury runs through Deontay Wilder like a knife through butter, and it was just a magnificent performance. It kind of completed Tyson Fury's arc of the comeback, the guy that was at the brink, and he was able to come back and realize his title aspirations once again. And then on this third fight, we weren't even supposed to get this, Dominic. I don't know how much you know about this, but this was supposed to be Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua.
Yeah. But
there was some sort of loophole or whatever you want to call it in the contract of the second Wilder Fury fight that allowed, and I believe an arbitrator or someone ruled in favor of Wilder to grant him this trilogy bout that a lot of people weren't really wanting because the second fight was so one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
So Joshua ends up fighting Alexander Usyk and loses.
Yeah, convincingly.
Yeah, and then you get this fight that ends up being an absolutely amazing fight. Who knows what kind of fight Fury and Joshua would have been. But considering all those elements and nobody really gave Wilder a chance, I thought he completely overperformed. It was kind of the fight you thought it would be in the sense that Fury was just a far better boxer, but Wilder just showed a lot of heart, showed a good chin, I would say, and just continued to carry his power, even if he was increasingly gassed. Essentially, after getting dropped in round 3 or 4, I think it was round 3, he got dropped twice. Round 4, he dropped Fury twice, I believe. Basically, from that round on, Wilder was kind of on wobbly legs the whole time, but he still carried that power. So it was like things looked dire for him at points, and then he would land a great shot and wobble Fury. So this is what, at the end of the day, as frustrated as I've been with the sport of boxing and why I've become so committed to MMA and have essentially not ever really gotten as invested in boxing. fights like this are hard to match. I mean, there's not many MMA fights that match the kind of the energy, the kind of story that was told in the cage in the ring here, and yeah, it's hard to beat high level boxing when it's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
Dominic, how was your Saturday night? Because should we put it out there that you did not watch this fight?
Yeah, I was not able to watch this, so Noah, thank you for the synopsis, the summary. I do appreciate it. I tried to follow along as much as I could on Twitter. Everybody was talking about it. I mean, this thing was a global phenomenon last night. But I was celebrating some spooky season stuff. We were at a haunted attraction theme park until like 1:30 a.m., so I was unable to watch the fight, and instead I was walking through a pitch black maze, getting scared shitless, and getting chased by clowns and Michael Myers and all that fun stuff. So that was my Saturday night.
I know how much you love spooky season, but man, you really chose a haunted house over one of the biggest heavyweight boxing fights in history. Respect, though, because we're MMA guys, so we got to stay loyal.
That's right.
How was the haunted house, though?
It was good. It was good. For those that don't know, Land of Illusion, one of the biggest. Really, it's one of the biggest ones in the nation. It's really grown. It's their 25th anniversary this year, so it was a lot of fun. Had a big group of 10 people there. Traveled a bit to go do that, and it was a fun time, man. We've been going there for years. We've kind of known the owner over the years, my uncle and stuff. So it was fun to go back there. I hadn't been there in a few years, and it changes so much each season or each Halloween. So it was a good time.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been. I'm not. I don't do that kind of. I don't do the spooky season stuff. I've done a couple haunted hayrides in my day, but I think that I probably shit myself on a couple of those. So
the movies are enough for you, right? That's
yeah. Well, I don't even watch horror movies that much. I'm just not a spooky. I don't like being spooked. All right.
Right.
Leave me alone, people. All right.
Let Noah be.
I watched the damn boxing fight. Okay.
Yes.
Regardless, let's get right into the fight announcements because we got a lot to go over here in this episode. It's a good one. Not quite as packed as Friday, but quick turnaround. How could you expect it to be?
It'd be like that sometimes.
We start with this Saturday's main event.
I mean,
very interesting here. Boy, okay, look. I know what I just said about last Saturday. How it was a card on paper that, yes, it was a good main event, like on paper, but the rest of the fights kind of was like, oof. And then they over-delivered, and everybody performed really good, and now we're going to have a lot to talk about here. So I realized that, that almost leads to, in the lead-up to the fight, if I'm not so on board with it, if I'm kind of criticizing the lack of, I guess, real powerful fights or fights that really, get us excited.
You want something on the line.
But then it delivers. I get how that could come off like we're, I don't know what the word is. It would almost come off like a "I told you so" from someone who maybe was a defender of this event. Yeah. I disagree on that kind of mindset. I do think ultimately you want these cards to have more at stake, like you just said, something. I get it. These are fight nights on ESPN Plus. These aren't pay-per-views that have top to bottom, top 15 matchups and stuff. But I mean, you compare the quality of fight nights that we're getting this month to what we got at the beginning of the pandemic, pretty big drop off.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go ahead and say that Holly Holm is out of her scheduled main event with Norma Dumont. Again, this is a fight that is anybody really excited for this fight as a main event? This is a 5-round women's featherweight fight. Yes, Holly Holm, big star, former women's bantamweight champion. But, I think a lot of people I think there's a bit of fatigue with Holly Holm at this point. And, she always puts up a good fight. So, she's worthy of a main event slot. But her opponent, Norma Dumont, has, while I've been a fan of the work she's done, I don't know if she's really ready for that kind of spot, especially because it's women's featherweight, which is not a division.
I know.
So, Holly Holm's out.
Yeah.
So really, your reason, I guess, to tune in and even though I probably have more interest in Norma Dumont on that fight. But
Mm-hmm.
this fight is not scrapped. However, the main event has been saved as someone's looking for a bit of redemption here. Aspen Ladd, the aforementioned, she was supposed to fight last 2 weekends ago now, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Had a really tough weight cut, couldn't make the weight, whether it was because she was on her period or whatever, I don't know. She's stepping in here, Dominic, to be in the headliner against Norma Dumont. Again, 5-round women's featherweight bout. There was a lot of speculation on what Aspen Ladd might do following that tough cut because, again, that was a bantamweight fight she was preparing for. So, Dominic, I guess the question here, is this a good idea? And ultimately for Aspen Ladd, is this a permanent move for her?
Well, I mean, it's good they salvaged the fight, I guess, right? And there's no other fight you can make the main event, I suppose. But again, it's at featherweight, which isn't a division. So we don't even really know if there's anything on the line in this fight. I mean, I guess you could argue there's a title shot on the line, but it's just weird. But for Aspen, okay, because we had a big discussion about her and Miesha Tate on Friday. Is this a permanent move? No, I don't think it is. I think it's her wanting to salvage her name a little bit, get some redemption from that weight miss, and at least test the waters at 145 and see how she performs. Norma's very big, but has also wanted to come down to bantamweight. So it's an interesting tandem here in terms of matchmaking. So we'll see how it goes. Aspen, I think, is going to want to come out and at least try to make a statement. And for Norma, this would still be really the biggest win of her career. It's just at the end of the day, what is exactly at stake with this fight? It's just so up in the air. But yeah, I don't think it's permanent still. I still think we're going to see Aspen at bantamweight.
You might be right, and I'd probably be inclined to agree with you because, again, I think this division's sort of being just carried along because that Amanda Nunes looks good for her to have 2 belts, I guess. But I'm going to be honest. I think Aspen Ladd, if she wins here, I think she might get a title fight.
Well, yeah, that's probably true.
So this could end up being a more long-term move for her than she's planning for, especially if you consider this concept of her beating Amanda Nunes.
Yeah.
Then what do you do? Is that when the division officially gets shut down? And it's like, all right, I became a champion, I beat the GOAT, but now I'm going to move down to bantamweight where she's still the champion. And I don't know, guys. The more I'm talking about this, the more we're talking about this, the more confused I think we're getting.
Yeah, right.
And let me just say that, it's kind of weird where Holly Holm is the biggest draw of the 3 women involved in this story.
Yeah.
But somehow this fight, I will say, is slightly better. At least it feels like either woman can win and potentially jump into a title fight.
For sure. Yeah.
While with Holly Holm, what inevitably probably would happen, because Holly Holm has essentially been doing this for years at bantamweight, is she would probably win against Norma Dumont, and then that division would just have no direction at all unless they wanted to run her and Amanda again.
And give Holly another title shot.
Yeah, which, I mean, does anybody need to see that? No. At least if Norma Dumont comes in here and puts on a great show, or if Aspen Ladd, has a good comeback after, pretty much everybody shit on her for that weight cut. It could be a good redemption for her, and then she could get a title fight. It's just weird how it kind of worked out where the fight it feels even less like a main event, but the fight, I think, at least has a little bit more intrigue than when Holly Holm was involved, at least for me.
I think I would tend to agree, especially because I guess I am still pretty big on Ladd, and I believe in her skills and talent at least. So in that aspect, I do agree for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, and I'm actually, before we move on, I don't know how much Aspen Ladd walks around at her weight, but is this still is this still a dangerous cut for her to try to make, considering, I get it, 10 pounds heavier, but considering she's coming off of such a tough weight.
Exactly.
Like we saw, for example, the first example that jumps out to me is, remember they canceled UFC 249 bout when Tony Ferguson weighed, even though the fight had been canceled, he's still on the day of
chose
weighed
to
in at
make
155 pounds.
Yeah.
And then a month later had to recut to that weight. And a lot of fighters that were involved in kind of talking about it on the broadcast or wherever were speaking at how that could really be a reason that his performance was so, left something to be desired because he just made 2 weight cuts in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So for Aspen Ladd, I don't know how much she walks around at, but if it was that tough to get the bantamweight, are we for sure that she's even going to be able to make this cut?
Could you actually imagine if she were to go in and miss this weight?
Dude.
She might be immediately cut from the promotion. But
Dude,
I don't want to get too negative, but that's still something people need to fathom here is, yes, it's 10 pounds more, but she's cutting weight 2 times in 2 weeks. She's going to still have to cut down weight to get to 145. I don't know how much, but it's going to have to happen. So, that's something to keep in mind. And we're probably going to talk about it again on Friday.
Yeah, definitely something to consider for sure. Moving on from that, another tough one here. Alexa Grasso out of her scheduled bout with Joanne Calderwood on November 20th. However, Grasso does have a replacement, and that's the recently performing, I guess, Taila Santos, who had that great win over Roxanne Modafferi at UFC 266. She steps in here against Joanne Calderwood, a chance to possibly propel herself into top 5, and ultimately she might be one away. I mean, this is great in my opinion. I mean, I know it's tough. Like Alexa Grasso, hope she's okay. Hope she, whatever. I can't remember. I don't know if they said if it was like COVID related or whatnot.
I don't know.
But hope she recovers from whatever injury or whatever held her from fighting here. But Joanne Calderwood has been kind of a constant in this top of the division, but hasn't. She's the one person probably in that top 6 or 7 that hasn't gotten a chance at Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah.
But she's kind of been in a gatekeeper role for a while, but she doesn't want that. She wants to shed that, show that she's ready for a title fight. Well, here you go. You get probably the person with the most momentum in the division outside of maybe the champion herself. Mm-hmm. And, it's a tough task for Joanne Calderwood, if we're being honest. Someone who's struggled against some grapplers who've been stronger than her. And Taila Santos fits the bill. But for Taila Santos, while Roxanne Modafferi is a good win, and, it feels like Roxy's just someone that, is always performs better than you expect her to. I would still stand by that this is a big jump up going from Roxanne Modafferi to Joanne Calderwood, even if rankings-wise, it's not exactly, the hugest jump in the world.
Yeah, I loved the Grasso and Joanne matchup just because they're 2 very good strikers. So it's unfortunate again. Shout out to Alexa Grasso. Hope all is well. But for this, with Santos stepping in, I'm a big believer in Santos. I can't remember if did we recap her and Roxanne at all when they fought? We may.
I feel like we did.
Or if we didn't on recording, we did off. But I believe that Santos at least has potential to get to a title challenging position. I think she carries a lot of power on the feet, and her grappling and jiu-jitsu is very good. So in a sense, this is a harder matchup for JoJo. But if she can keep it on the feet, she might be able to utilize the reach and kind of pick her shots too. So while it sucks Grasso's out, this is still a pretty good fight. And as Noah said, Santos carrying tons of momentum right now. So I like it.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad, for Santos, considering she has that momentum, it's probably good that she's looking to have a quick turnaround. She didn't take probably much to any damage against Modafferi, so why not look to capitalize on what you've kind of built up so far?
Yeah.
Tough test, but one that's necessary to show that she can potentially fight Shevchenko.
Yeah, and literally a stamp made by either might get him a title shot at this point, so we'll see.
It might. I mean, and that's okay. Because
that's fine.
To me, if either one of them make a stamp, I would probably say they should get a title fight. In my opinion,
when everyone ahead of them has already had it.
Yeah,
kind of up.
I mean, as long as you put up a better showing than Lauren Murphy did. No disrespect, Lauren. I don't mean to bring it back up. Hey, by all means, go in there, Tiger.
Right.
Last one, our first main event of 2022 is set, and it features a man who we have not seen since the first main event of 2021.
Yeah.
And that's the number 5 ranked Calvin Kattar, who will look to make a big bounce back in his return It's not going to be easy. He took a beating from Max Holloway, who made the prolific statement in the cage that he is the best boxer in the UFC after, so much had been made up about Calvin Kattar's boxing and whatnot. So Kattar looks to bounce back, but he's going up against another prolific striker, this time Giga Chikadze. That's right, to the commenter on our Giga video that called me out for saying Giga Chikadze.
There you go.
And Dominic, I love this fight for one. I do.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is was I the one that called it? I don't know. You tell me, people. But Giga Chikadze, this is the fight that I wanted for him next.
Yeah.
However, if you're Calvin Kattar, if you're a fan of Calvin Kattar, Dominic, are you a little nervous about this fight?
You probably got to be at least a little bit, because if you look at how he performed against Max, now you're getting a striker in Giga who may not be as good of a boxer, but in terms of all-around striking with his kicks and all of his other weapons, he may just be just as damn good as Max on the feet. Yeah. So this is another intriguing matchup. This is violence guaranteed in the first main event of the year, just like 2021 was. So it makes sense for both guys. Calvin to take step back, quote unquote. Not that Giga is any slouch. What's he won? 7 in a row now. And Giga finally going to launch himself in for a chance to get top 5. It's everything that he wants. So it makes sense. It checks all the boxes. Fight fans, be ready. January is getting kicked off in a very, very fun way.
Man, you put the violence guaranteed on that one. I don't know if I can say that. I think let's be honest. Giga Chikadze is on a great run and has really improved over the last couple of years. But not too long ago, this guy lost on the Contender Series and was in some pretty boring split decisions and whatnot. So
right.
I'm just saying, I like him. I think he's well improved and has really, become much more confident in his skill set. But I ain't ready to put – this could end up being a very boring fight, I think. I think there's a big risk for that. That's going to wrap it up for these here fight announcements. Let's get into some Paddy Pimblett.
Ah, you don't say.
Tell me that this might be the worst headline I've ever came up with.
But we're rolling with it.
Yeah. Paddy Pimblett, he has signed a 7-figure deal with none other than Barstool Sports to perform the role of brand ambassador and content creator. Now, Dominic, I don't know how much you consume content-wise from Barstool Sports, but I can say that I watch quite a bit of Barstool. And what's been very apparent for me as a viewer for a while is that they are still, they've yet to really commit to combat sports or MMA in terms of, hiring people for the purpose of covering that sport. Right. Robbie Fox is great. We like Robbie a lot. Data loves that guy, so, they have a good relationship there. But he's the only one
right
under that umbrella. And, I mean, you look at how many people work for that company, and, they're very into the sports betting, and even have the Barstool Sportsbook now. But this is a good move, I think, in kind of, I guess, bringing in more MMA content. But, Dominic, I'm going to ask you as probably the person who might know a little less about Barstool. But do you like Paddy as a representative of the sport, considering what I just told you about Barstool Sports?
Oh, yeah, I love this. Barstool is that different take on sports, the more fun, lighthearted side where they really just give in, don't give a shit what they're saying. It's a different side of journalism and media, and that's why I think a lot of people love them so much. I got a Barstool shirt on right now. I think Paddy's a perfect fit as a representative for them, and just the way his charisma and everything. Dave Portnoy posted a video about why he wanted to sign Paddy. He saw him make his debut in September. Loved him in the cage with the knockout after facing adversity. Loved him on the microphone. I feel like he just really fits with this brand. It was surprising because you don't see things like this with MMA fighters. I mean, obviously you see them do sponsorships and all that stuff, but this is a brand ambassador to create content with Barstool, which is a different level of kind of how these deals work. So I think this is very unique. I'm excited to see what content they come out with. And I think Paddy and Robbie Fox put together are going to make some pretty cool things as well. So this is really neat. It's something that may be just the start or the tip of the iceberg for Barstool as well with MMA.
I hope so. And, I'm just going to put it out there that we would love to be Barstool's MMA podcast. But
it would.
I didn't even – you're wearing a Barstool shirt?
Oh, yeah, baby.
Do you watch Barstool? Did I not know this?
Oh, I love Barstool.
Oh, well. Maybe I don't even have a
Barstool. Is their MMA Twitter account?
I don't even have a Barstool shirt. So, correction, Dominic is the Barstool guy here. But I do like this move. I know I've been a little outspoken about about my Paddy Pimblett critiques, and it's not even a critique of him because I do love the personality. I love his fight style.
Yeah.
I just don't know if the ceiling is really where other people want it to be. This move doesn't really affect that. I mean, ultimately, it kind of just sets him up more to, even if his run here is ultimately, maybe he does kind of get phased out. Maybe he does kind of go on a 500 run. He's still got the personality chops and the knowledge of the sport and the understanding of the sport, at least I would assume, to be able to, create content for something like Barstool Sports. And you're right. Him and Robbie Fox together would be quite the tandem. As much as I love Robbie, I'm ready to see some more voices in Barstool speaking about MMA. Because, Robbie doesn't just do that either. I mean, he does WWE.
Yeah.
I guess even AEW now, so professional wrestling.
Yeah.
He does a lot of other stuff too, like
music,
more nerdy music. He has that podcast, My Mom's Basement, where he basically just talks about everything he loves. A lot of nerdy stuff in there too. So, and that's good for him for sure. But because of that, there's still not really much of a focus on MMA at Barstool Sports, and this is a good step in that direction. But I'm still just gonna say Barstool.
Hey, Barstool.
Get on the train before anybody else does.
we can nudge out the contract details, baby.
Let's move on to the UFC card from Saturday. We're actually gonna start with
some big kahunas.
Yeah, look, the ball's on this guy. This might be the second worst headline I've ever made. Still rolling with it though.
Exactly.
So this is going to be actually before the fights even started. We had quite the, I guess, weigh-in day where essentially one of the fights I was most excited for on this undercard was Phil Hawes and Deron Winn. That's right, it's Deron, not Dern. Apparently he hates it when you call him Darren, so I'm sorry.
That's all we do is butcher names on this show.
I actually, just real quick, I've gone back and listened to a few of our older episodes.
Oh, no.
And hearing me butcher a name and Dominic go, oh, my God, 10 out of 10 pronunciation makes me cringe so much. It made me, at the time, it felt like a parent, hanging up on the, if you're a kid and you came back from school and you got, a C on your exam and your parents still, hung it up on the fridge. That's how I felt. It's a little bit of secondhand. It's a little bit of embarrassment.
I'm giving Noah the A for effort type.
It's okay, oh my God, please stop.
Yeah.
But literally me trying to say different names and Dominic's oh my God, the pronunciation's just 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I'm just I know it's not. Stop. Deron Winn.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
Regardless. Deron Winn, unfortunately, had to be pulled from this bout against Phil Hawes, and really chaos kind of ensued from there because they found a replacement to weigh in and fight Phil Hawes on basically 24 hours notice, that being Chris Curtis, of former Contender Series alum, who Dominic has really let me in on being one of the better unsigned talents out there.
Yeah.
So still a big fight, but again, just a lot going on there. Phil Hawes doesn't come to an agreement to fight Chris Curtis. So then you got the replacement fighter, Curtis, who's weighed in.
Yeah.
But now he doesn't have a fight. So then the coach of Tim Elliott, who was there to corner him, that being James Krause, says, I'll weigh in and fight him tomorrow. And in a savage move, I believe he weighed in at 192 pounds. So it was like 7 over the middleweight limit. And ultimately, I think the Nevada State Athletic Commission kind of was like,
yeah, we can't do this.
Do it. But still, the ball's on this guy, right?
Exactly.
Coach James Krause. And this isn't even the first, this is probably the most, I guess, intimate example, but James Krause has basically made a career of doing this. If you look at his career, he has a great record in UFC. I believe of 9-4.
Yeah, he's
but
incredible.
He constantly only takes late notice, short notice bouts. Maybe, possibly just because of the focus on his fighters and being that he maybe emphasizes being a coach a little more. But Dominic, what are kind of your thoughts on the whole situation? I feel like there's going to be that toxic side of the MMA fan base that comes after my boy Phil Hawes here. It shouldn't happen. But what are your thoughts on the situation?
No, we're not accepting any slander on Phil Hawes. Again, he was not only was he offered to fight on like less than 30 hours notice against one of the top unsigned talents in MMA right now, in Chris Curtis, but he was preparing a whole training camp for a guy that is grapple heavy, and all he was going to try and do is grind out Phil Hawes. It's
a 5'5" middleweight.
Yes, a 5'5" middleweight, and now you're going to get a powerhouse in Chris Curtis who fights nothing like Deron Winn does? No, I don't blame him at all for turning this fight away, and especially when you're 3-0 in the UFC. Yes, he had that one dud with Imavov, but other than that, he's looked great. He's a Contender Series vet, a lot of hype behind him. He's fun to watch, and he's on the cusp of top 15 with one more win, more than likely. So no slander will be accepted on Phil Hawes' part. Chris Curtis, excited because it more than likely means that he's in the UFC now, at least. So we're going to see him get a fight, at least we hope. James Krause, you're a badass, and that can't be said enough. All he does is he's that anytime, anywhere mentality. That's the James Krause. And not to mention he's one of the best coaches in the game. So just a great human being, a great fighter, a great coach. And, man, if this fight would have happened, that would have been pretty nuts. But maybe they'll do Chris Curtis and James Krause.
Possibly, but it seems seriously, James Krause only accepts
right. He's like, training camp? Fuck that.
So now let's get into the actual main event of this UFC card. And I thought it was a really good fight, if I'm being honest. But
Fight Night, too.
Yeah, I actually agree with that in terms of the main card. I don't know if I'd give it. I think our opener, which we'll get into, Steve Garcia and Charlie Ontiveros, that was a great fight. But in terms of the main card, I probably agree with that. It was probably the fight of the night. And I actually had someone ask me this question: why do I make that distinction between main card and prelims? I'm just going to answer it now. It makes more sense for pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Because to me, I pick a fight of the night based on what I'm paying my money for. Pay-per-views, like you get the prelims on ESPN Plus or ESPN pay-per-view being what you spend that $70 on.
Right.
Which of those 5 or 6 fights is what you like the most? And since I've done that for so long, I just apply it to all the fight nights as well and any other MMA I watch, just because, I don't know. It's hard to, especially when I went through and was watching every bout from UFC 1 on.
Yeah.
It's hard to include all the prelims of those bouts or events in my watch history as well.
Yeah, you got to split it up some.
Yeah, you do. So, anyways, back to the fight itself. Marina Rodriguez, maybe I should say, she gets the win over Mackenzie Dern via unanimous decision. An underdog win here. Now, Dominic, I am just going to pose you this question right at the top. Were you more impressed with Marina's win or disappointed in Mackenzie's loss in terms of their performances? Let me know.
Okay, so this is a bit of a slippery slope for me, so I'm going to tread lightly. But I'm leaning more toward Marina's performance because she looked incredible on the feet, obviously, and we knew that from the get-go. She's a world-class Muay Thai practitioner. But it's not that. It was the ability to keep Mackenzie from securing the takedowns. Now, I will say when she did get taken down, round 2, I scored a 10-8 for Mackenzie. That was pure dominance for Mackenzie. She just wasn't able to lock in the finish. So Marina looked like we've seen Marina in the past in that second round. But round 3, she was able to withstand, keep it all on the feet. Round 4, she was able to keep it all on the feet until the final minute, which wasn't enough to secure that round for Mackenzie. So therefore leading to that 4-1 kind of scorecard deal. So I was definitely more impressed with Marina, kind of showing her improvements or her continued improvements in the game. There definitely is some disappointment in Mackenzie, but it doesn't outweigh my Marina's performance necessarily. I was going to keep going on the fight, but I actually want to hear from you first before we get more into it.
Okay. I'm going to go the other way. I was probably more disappointed in Mackenzie's performance. And while Marina had a great showing here, you want to hear an interesting little thing to consider here. This is Marina's second 5-round fight.
Yep.
She has that weird record of now it's 5-1-2.
Yep.
She has the 2 draws. If this was a 3-round bout, it would have been a draw.
Yes, it would have.
At least I think it would have been according to the judges' scorecards. A lot of people scored that second round of 10-8 for Mackenzie. I can't remember how the judges
they actually, real quick while we're on it, they actually all scored at 49-46. So not one judge scored a 10-8, which shocked me.
Well, never mind. Then Marina
but I get what you're saying because I scored it at 10-8.
So it could have been funny if Marina got a third draw in the UFC. But that those first 3 rounds tells the story of Marina's early run in the UFC to look really good, in those 2 of those 3 rounds, and then to just get dominated so one-sidedly when the fight gets to the ground that she ultimately ends up making up for the fact that she had won 2 rounds because it's 10-8. So, but again, 5-round fight, Marina wins. She had a good performance, and I will say this fight, the headline here being throwback fight. What I liked most about this fight was that it felt like a fight I would have seen back in 2007, which I know I wasn't watching live at the time. And I guess the irony being that women weren't even fighting in the UFC at that time.
Yeah.
But these were 2 women that were so specialized in a certain aspect of their game. Marina's Muay Thai is really good. Mackenzie's Jiu-Jitsu, incredible. Was nearly pulling off arm bars with her legs here in the fight. Just, which I know doesn't make sense when I word it like that. If you watch the fight, you know what I'm talking about. Some crazy looking arm bars. But so it felt like a throwback fight. And as great as MMA is now, and everybody's so good at everything, that it's kind of nice when you get a fight where it's like, oh, you see the holes in everybody's game. You see the clear routes to victory, And here, Marina, while it was a great performance and a great win, a win that might springboard her into a title eliminator or a title shot, I'm more disappointed in Mackenzie because I feel like after that round 2, where she had that great round, really looked like things were turning in her favor, she couldn't ever replicate it. And I sent you the stat, and I'm going to give credit to Luke Thomas for pointing this out on his show, Morning Combat. I did not know Mackenzie Dern only has 10% accuracy on her takedowns in her career. That was before this fight with Marina, so I don't know what it's going to be even less than that now. Yeah. She wasn't credited with a single takedown here. Her success in getting the fight to the ground was off of kind of wild sprawls that would kind of catch Marina off balance and just being smart enough to kind of hold her once they would be kind of flailing around on the ground a little bit, to kind of hold her down and be like, nope, we're staying here. But when she tried to actually go for takedowns,
nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Not only, and I don't even know if I can really credit Marina's takedown defense. I just think those takedown attempts were brutal. I mean, send Mackenzie Dern to Hendrickson right now
with Kevin
Holland. She needs to learn to wrestle, because if she could just, even if I think against Nina Nunes, she showed some great trips.
Yes.
That's a way to do that as well. But here, I don't know I think she was struggling to close the distance a little bit.
She was.
We might have gave Mackenzie's striking too much credit in terms of, she hasn't been fighting strikers. So, when she looked good on the feet against Virna Janudova, another jiu-jitsu specialist.
Yeah.
You see here the levels, though.
Oh, yeah, you did.
It's one thing for Marina to have the advantage on the feet and to be the more accomplished striker, which we knew both of those. But Mackenzie got outclassed on the feet and couldn't even so much as, smartly close the distance and try to wrap up Marina, because Mackenzie was the bigger girl in the cage here. She looked like she was probably the stronger fighter, and just nothing. It was when she had those moments, and again, I think it even happened in the 4th round where Mackenzie was able to get the fight on the ground within the last 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Not enough to win the round, obviously, but it does leave a bit of a disappointment considering she was the favorite coming in here. And, again, I was so tempted to go with Marina after hearing that 10% takedown defense. But if there's anybody who Mackenzie should be able to take down, it's someone like Marina Rodriguez, who's had very suspect takedown defense. And she just couldn't. She couldn't do it, man. And this fight is going to be interesting to look back on when we see where their 2 careers go, because obviously Marina's got some big fights ahead potentially, and Mackenzie does as well. But man, I mean, that is a tough loss, tough pill to swallow. And for her, she does kind of carry that weight for being such a big prospect, I guess, in the UFC, and someone the UFC have really wanted to build up. She's probably not going to get an easy next draw either. She might get someone who's also a prolific striker. So definitely that wrestling's got to be fixed yesterday. At least to the point where you can do trips. I mean, she showed good trips.
She just couldn't set them up.
She
could not close that distance.
She could not close it. And so whether it's continuously improving that striking to where you can find smart ways to get in close.
So you feel more safe to get closer,
Because even though Marina might be the best striker in the division, she might be, she really here kind of didn't show all that she's capable of, if I'm being honest.
And that was probably because she was so hesitant of the the
ground. 100%. And I think it was a smart performance, but Mackenzie looked in some ways bad at times, despite Marina kind of holding back.
Yeah, so, she would spin around and not have the wherewithal to know where Marina was. Had Marina wanted to pull the trigger more, we could have seen a knockout.
Yeah, it could have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a long-winded answer there, but it was a good fight, but it was kind of in spite of what we saw from Mackenzie Dern here and stuff.
Right.
So, Dominic, I don't know if you want to talk more about Mackenzie. I believe we both picked Mackenzie to win, right? Is that agree? So what were kind of your thoughts, I guess, on her performance more so?
I mean, definitely, there was the disappointment, obviously. I've been a big Mackenzie Dern fan since she came into the UFC. She had a ton of hype then. And the way that she turned her career around from the early weight misses and stuff to being, she can't do anything on the feet, to at least now you see the physique has totally changed. No more weight issues. She's definitely improved on the feet, but you still see the difference. It was like 2 different stratospheres here. And I still believe in her camp. Jason Perillo, he's still a great coach. He was giving her great advice in the corners. I loved when they were doing the listen-ins. He's telling her, you do this, you keep pressuring, you go in, level change, go up, and then go back in for the takedown. Set it up 2 times, you will get it. But she just could not pull that trigger. I think she was kind of just hesitant because Marina has the power. She did catch Mackenzie coming in a couple times, and it hurt. So, a little bit of a disappointment there. But again, Marina looked so incredible. This is 2 back-to-back main events where she's shown 25 straight minutes that she can go. She can do this. Not to mention her fight with Michelle Watterson. She accepted that on a week's notice and still went 25 minutes and never took her foot off the gas. Yeah, because they did it at flyweight, which was crazy because Michelle's so small. But Marina Rodriguez is for real. And so now I'm going to focus on what's coming next for Noah, because listen, it was a great performance, and yes, you could say she gets a title fight, but let's just not do it. Damn it, Carla Esparza needs to get her title shot next, depending on how Zhang Weili and Rose 2 goes. And it helps Carla when Marina Rodriguez in the post-fight presser says, no, I don't want the title. Carla deserves it. I'll fight Carla in our rematch when she's the champion, and then it's for the belt. So it's like, all right, well, if you're saying you don't want it, I'm not going to match make it for you. There's someone that hasn't fought in quite some time, Noah. And she's another world-class Muay Thai practitioner. She goes by the name Joanna Champion. Ever heard of her? 6 title defenses. One of the most elite talents we've ever seen in the UFC. Damn it, she hasn't fought since March of 2020. It's time to welcome her back into the cage. I think we do a 5-round main event. Marina Rodriguez, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Make that a title eliminator bout. I don't want to argue about it.
All right, fine.
But I am curious to get your thoughts.
I mean, I think it would be a great fight because that is probably the two best Muay Thai practitioners that the UFC has to offer. But in my opinion, I'm kind of like, I haven't even really thought about Joanna in a while because I look at her as being done.
Right.
I think she might be just retired at this point. She seems to have one foot out the door anyways. So if she does come back, that would be a great fight. But also, like, should Joanna really get one fight, like get one win and get another title fight? I mean, if this is coming close to Holly Holm territory for me. Where I'm like,
right.
All right. She was a dominant champion. I know Holly Holm wasn't dominant, but Joanna, dominant champion, loses twice to Rose. Once when she was the champion, then immediate rematch. Then she goes up to women's flyweight and loses in the inaugural, or not the inaugural, but after Montano gets stripped, her and Valentina.
It felt like the inaugural.
Now her and Valentina have the title fight where she loses. And, if she would have beat Wei Li, she probably would have been, or her and Wei Li for the title. They didn't even think about that. So that's, Dominic, I'm not ready to see Joanna back in another title fight. But I get your sentiment. I'm more interested in challenging Marina in other ways.
I want to hear it.
I feel like it's going to let you down a little bit here.
No.
I just think she should run it back with Carla.
Fair enough. No, there's really nothing else left to do. Like, if it's not a title and Joanna doesn't come back, there's only one other person now,
Or she fights the loser of Rose and Wei Li, which would be a great fight. But for me, like, the biggest question, Marina I am so close to wanting to be like, this is a future champion.
Yeah.
But I can't because she has not shown any maybe slight improvements, but she hasn't shown any ability to stay off her back if someone wants to take it there. This fight, again, I can't really credit her because I feel like this was more of a lack of her opponent being able to get the fight there. And obviously, once it did get there, very one-sided for Mackenzie. So I want to see Carla get the next title fight. I do. So I guess the question becomes, what happens in that title fight in November?
I know.
Because if Wei Li wins,
we're probably getting a trilogy.
We're getting a trilogy. And if I'm Carla or Marina, I want to stay active.
Exactly.
Because I get, like, waiting, because Carla deserves it at this point. Yeah. But if you wait to the point where it's like a year, you saw Leon Edwards do something similar and it didn't really work out for him.
Yeah, you're losing time on your career.
Well, if you're not constantly putting yourself out there in these fights, I know it's risky because you might lose and then you lose your spot, but also there's the element of, like, for Leon, the fans stopped caring. And I know they never really...
You almost become irrelevant.
Yeah, like, I know they never really cared, but, like, then they cared even less.
Yeah, poor Leon.
Poor guy. But no, I know. I don't mean no crap off.
I know.
Because I do think he's in a good spot right now. But Carla, we could argue, is in a good spot as well. But if Wei Li turns the tables in that rematch, we're going to a trilogy.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think her and Marina should run it back because, I think that first fight was very dull. I remember when I watched it, it was pretty dull, but it was a good performance from Carla Esparza. Can she do that a second time? Look at what happened when she went up against the Muay Thai striking of Joanna back in the day.
Yeah.
Joanna destroyed her. But here with Marina, she looked fantastic. And a big difference in those two fights was the confidence in her takedown defense.
Right.
So can Marina come far enough along to where not only is she competent enough to stay off her back, but confident enough to use more of her game plan? It might be a bit of a letdown compared to two of the prolific Muay Thai strikers that the UFC have to offer going head-to-head. I'd be excited if Joanna came back and fought Marina.
Yeah.
dare I say, I think that'd be a rough night for Marina on paper. I think Joanna's just that damn good.
Oh man.
But I would like to see it, So if it happens, I'd be excited for it. It's just I'm not really even Joanna's not really on the brain right now.
Right. Yeah.
Even though she's great. But
yeah.
I digress. Any other final thoughts on that one?
We got some more fights to discuss.
Yeah, let's go on into the rest. And this is really hard to limit down, if I'm being honest with you guys. It's rare you get this kind of card. There's 9 fights on this card, and really every one of them could have been on to talk about. Not all of them have exactly takeaways as far as what's next and stuff like that, but a lot of really good performances and good fights on here that are worth addressing. We'll start with the co-main event. Mm-hmm. Randy Brown gets the unanimous decision win over Jared Gooden. And I'm just going to pose the question because I think this is going to be kind of a forgettable fight, and I guess Randy Brown's catalog. I mean, not that it was bad, but, he's
for his standards.
For him, he's fought, in my opinion, more accomplished opponents than Jared Gooden.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that's what I mean forgettable. This isn't necessarily the win that would make me pose this question, but he is on a win streak that makes me ask, is top 15 next for Mr. Randy Brown?
I believe so. I really do. I think that's his 8th win in the UFC now. He's fan-friendly in terms of his fight style. He's showing an evolution in his game as he continues to grow. Not to mention he's still dangerous on the ground. You just don't really get to see it as much. And I say he's top 15, and we don't always matchmake in the rest. But give me a second here, people. And I hope Noah likes this because there's a newly introduced top 15 welterweight, Noah. Yeah. He goes by D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. And I'm just going to say it right now. Randy Brown versus Daniel Rodriguez is the fight I want to see next. Inject it into my veins.
What kills me is I love that fight. Damn it, I want to see Daniel Rodriguez fight top 10.
I know.
So so it's so complicated for me.
Yeah.
The other day there's rumors that Arman Saryukin might be fighting Gregor Gillespie next.
Yeah.
And I got real excited. I sent it to you. But I'm also like, man, but Gregor looked so good against Diego Pereira. Why can't he get someone ahead of him, I know you can't always do that, but, man, I do love that fight. Yeah. And, Daniel Rodriguez, I think, though, right now I want to see him try to capitalize as much as he can on this. I want to call it a bubble almost, but it could – I mean, for all we know, Daniel Rodriguez might be, dare I say, top 5 in this division.
He's still so slept on, even after the Kevin Lee win.
It's crazy to think about it, but he just every time out he shows me something new.
Yes, he does.
And you don't see that a lot. And not only something new, but he has beaten down guys like Kevin Lee. He's looked fantastic on this run he's been on. So I kind of want to see him try to capitalize on that as much as he can, that momentum. But I would not be upset.
So do you think in general, though, Randy Brown, top 15 next? Are you on board regardless?
Yeah, I'm on board. I don't have a name in mind, but I definitely think that would be appropriate. He's been hanging around this 16,
right
20, range for a long time.
Well,
had some tough losses.
Vicente Luque,
Yeah, had some tough losses. The loss to Nico Price where he got knocked out while Nico was on the bottom. I mean, that just when does that ever happen? He has a win over Mickey Gall. He gave Mickey Gall his first loss in the UFC. Fun fact. So, next fight, I'm going to let Dominic take this one because I know how much he enjoyed the performance here with Maria. I'm still going to call her Agapova because Agapova just doesn't sound right. So Maria Agapova gets the submission win over Sabina Mazo. Round 3, 53 seconds in. Dominic, big bounce back for Agapova here, correct?
Oh, huge. And I'll tell you right now, I know women's strawweight is the most stacked division right now in women's MMA, or in the UFC anyway. But women's flyweight right now is really feeling out right now, Noah, because we've got a dominant champion, obviously, who's beaten those top 5. But if you get out of that and go to, where Taila Santos is, number 9, number 8, and go through to number 15, we've got some real bright potential, real bright stars, and Maria Agapova is next in line. She looked amazing following that huge upset loss she had to, what was Shayna Dobson, right?
Yep.
Minus 1,600 favorite, lost that fight, got dominated in that fight. And everyone just starts writing her off. What are we doing here, people? Especially if she's coming out with the headgear on. We got women coming out with that on now. So she put the whole division on notice last night at UFC Vegas 39. Her hands were phenomenal, her speed, her power. Then she lands this right hook against Sabina Mazo that dropped. I thought it was a one-punch KO, truthfully. It was nasty in that third round. Drops Mazo. She immediately pounces for the rear naked choke submission. What a bounce back win. She looked amazing. It was a striking clinic all 3 rounds until the finish. Woo! What a performance.
I can't add anything except great performance. And I just love the transition from when she hurt Mazo to where she locked into submission so quick and
seamless.
Ferocious.
Yep.
So definitely a good win for her. And she very well could be right back on track and potentially top 15 coming up. Alexander Romanov. He continues his undefeated streak. He's at 15.
15-0.
He gets the TKO over Jared Vandura. 4 minutes, 43 seconds around number 2. This one didn't surprise too many people with the odds or anything to go off of. But Dominic, Romanov is kind of a guy that's came on our radar probably a little later than most. And it wasn't the best first impression. He went up against Juan Espino, who is a former winner of the Ultimate Fighter, but is a guy that's like 40 years old at this point. They had a fight. I forget which card it was. I want to say it was the Robert Whittaker, Kelvin Gastelum card.
Yeah, it might have been.
Because I remember Arlovsky was on the card.
It was in the summer, yeah.
That's all I remember. So this fight takes place, and Romanov looks good early. Boy, does he gas, and then he gets hit in like the nuts, and then he kind of just stops. And I get it. If you can't continue, we've had this. A lot of people called out Aljamain Sterling for his performance, if you want to call it that. I guess after the legal knee, saying that he was acting and stuff. Romanov probably would have similar complaints thrown at him, if not for the fact that this was just a smaller fight on this card. So I remember Dominic in particular was not happy with this fight. He hated this fight. So not the best first impression for a guy who's a heavyweight prospect. Comes in here, bounces back with TKO whenever Vandura. Dominic, is there a part of you that's starting to believe in Romanov as a dark horse potentially in this heavyweight division?
Yeah, and I also want to take this moment to apologize to Romanov because of my lack of interest in his last fight. And I say this because they presented it on the broadcast. First off, that was the 3rd fight ever in UFC history to be stopped by groin strikes. Fun fact. Another one was Stefan Struve, also at heavyweight. That one makes me want to vomit just thinking about it. But so that fight, yes, it was lackluster as a fight in general. He gassed. You thought, oh, he's just taking it the easy way out, quote unquote. Turns out he actually was in the hospital following that fight for 6 weeks. So there was some serious shit that happened. I don't know if it was directly related to the groin strikes, but regardless, something was wrong in that fight, and it led to 6 weeks in the hospital.
Well, let me just offer a correction. I don't think when you were more just shitting on the fight.
The fight, right?
You didn't say that like you thought he was faking. I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure that was a point of contention.
So let's just clear it off for everybody.
Yeah, I'm just saying that was out there.
Yeah,
we side with the fighters more.
Of course.
Like with Aljamain, we didn't say that he was faking, but that has been a talking point.
Right.
So I'm just saying that Romanov didn't exactly give off the best first impression, but continue.
But now all of a sudden he's 4-0 in the UFC. 3 of them are via finish, and then you have that technical split, which the groin strike thing. You don't see many technical split decisions.
Yeah, that's weird.
He looked incredible last night. I mean, he was a minus 650. He was one of the biggest favorites on the card. He was the biggest favorite on the card. So I expected him to win. But, dude, this guy is just a behemoth of a man. Yeah. He carries power in his hands, but he always looks to grapple. And you don't see many grapplers in the heavyweight division, which makes him a dark horse.
Yeah, submission specialist is Romanov, and I will be curious to see kind of where they go with him next. Is Is top 15 already in sight?
Mm-hmm.
Could be. I wouldn't mind a fight with Walt Harris, if I'm being honest.
Makes sense.
I just threw that out there because I know Walt just had they had scrapped his fight with Tuivasa. Just throwing it out there. But I do think top 15 is on the horizon, and you're right. It's good. He's going to be, I guess, treated similar. I mean, you look at like Curtis Blades, the success he's had, and he's had some faltering moments. He's been finished a couple times by some of the biggest power punchers in the division, Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou. But besides those 3 fights with those 2 guys,
he dominates people.
So Remabov could have a very similar path to the top where, sure, he'll have to be tested against the power of some of these strikers. But, if he goes up against a Volkov, he's going to have that advantage.
Yeah.
If he goes up against some of these other guys, he's going to have that advantage, I would think. So I'm definitely more aware and more I'm more on his side now than I was coming in. I was very tempted to actually put money on Jared Vandura, who had a war in his last fight, a bloody mess, and that fight was actually pretty good with Justin Tafa. So I was very tempted, but I'm glad I didn't, considering what happened. And Rumavov, he has now won me over, which I'm sure he cared about so much as he spent 6 weeks in a hospital.
Yeah.
Next fight. These are going to be the 2 openers. And
Lupia
Godinez gets the sub of Silvana Gomez Suarez in round 1, 4 minutes, 14 seconds. This was a mismatch if I've ever seen it. And, I'm not saying that was known going in. Pretty sure Lupia was 0-1 in the UFC coming in here, while her opponent, Silvana, making her debut. Lupia just ran through her and looked fantastic while doing it, I just want to add. So I just wanted to give her a shout because I think she might be a name to look out for. What do you think, Dom?
Yeah, Lupita took the short notice fight in her debut against Jessica Panay, of all people, up a weight class, puts on a good performance but loses. Now this one, she has a full training camp for another opponent, falls out, and Silvana accepts this fight on a week's notice. She was supposed to be on the Contender Series next week, but they gave her this fight against Godinez. So granted, the cards weren't necessarily in her favor. Godinez is a very good talent. She's a former LFA champion, so I think she does have a high ceiling, especially getting to see what she did off of a full training camp shows a lot.
Glad you brought that up. I did not know LFA champion. That's I need to do a better job of kind of knowing where these fighters come from. But
LFA, I need to follow them more.
LFA is the big, it's the biggest minor league, if you want to word it like that, promotion there is. Last one, the opener of the card. This fight was probably the fight of the night, the whole main card, in my opinion. This fight was a banger. At lightweight, Steve Garcia gets the TKO win over Charlie Ontiveros. This coming in a minute, 51 seconds of round number 2. Didn't start off looking too good for our guy Steve Garcia here.
He was on spaghetti legs.
Just to set this up, Steve Garcia fought on the Contender Series as a bantamweight, where he missed weight. He weighed in at 139 pounds for a 135-pound fight. He got a big win, but didn't get signed, obviously, because he missed weight. In here as a 155-pounder, undersized, going up against Charlie Ontiveros, who lost about a year ago to Kevin Holland at 185 pounds.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't tell you the kind of size difference and, I guess, differences in power you might be dealing with here, I don't know what does. And early on, that appeared to be the case. Charlie Ontiveros, every time he touched Garcia, he was wobbling him, hurting him.
And they were with axe kicks.
A wild axe kick. That was crazy. But where Ontiveros went wrong here was he could not stay off his back. The powerful takedown of Garcia. Really nice looking takedowns. And, he just looked like a very smart fighter here, which is, got to give a lot of credit to that. For a guy who's still on his way up in a lot of ways, he just had a very high fight IQ. Every time he got hurt, he didn't just kind of turtle up and try to cover his head. He was looking for limbs to grab a hold of and pull down and force into sprawls and
Right.
stuff like that. And once this fight was on the ground, I mean, round one, Steve Garcia got dropped twice, and he might have won the round. That tells you anything.
Yeah.
Because the ground and pound he unleashed on the Ontiveros was fierce.
Bloody
And round
mess.
2, same story. I mean, just even more brutal, and gets the win. Big win for Garcia. I'm kind of excited to see what's next for him. He's committed to 155 pounds. Kind of want to see him go to featherweight, but
Yeah, that might be like the perfect.
But I'm pretty sure in his post fight he said he's committed to 155. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Booyah!
It's gonna wrap it up for this here weekend recap. Give us your thoughts on all the fights that took place, and even the Fury Wilder fight. Let us know if you guys watched that and what you thought of it. We'll be back on Friday for another weekend preview. Promise, guys, we're going to get through this month together.
What's crazy is this one is definitely the weakest main event of the fight nights coming up, Ladd and Dumont.
Mm-hmm.
But the fight night headlined by Costa and Vettori as a whole, woo-wee.
Yeah, like at least you got the main event, but
yeah. And we don't even know if that one will happen yet. I'm waiting until that day.
Let's be honest. The people's main event this Saturday is in the co-main event as Andrei Arlovsky goes one-on-one with Carlos
With the great
Felipe.
one.
As you guys know,
salivating.
Carlos Felipe has been the bane of my existence for a while now, due to his fight with Jorgen De Castro, which I could constantly bring up on this podcast.
And Andre is what keeps Noah breathing. So.
Andrei Arlovsky might be he's one of my favorite fighters of all time. He has an opportunity here to take out the man who has caused me so much grief. I'm so excited for it. Yes. But obviously, tune into that on Friday. It's going to be a good time.
We'll have some diamonds in the rough to discuss. Maybe.
We'll get through this together. Everybody.
Yes.
But Dominic, until then, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
Find me on Twitter, on Instagram at dslee14. More importantly, go follow, go engage, go interact, go tell Barstool to get on this hype train. Bring us on in at BAJ_MMA podcast.
Also, I had I'm not going to tell you who, but I was given an anonymous complaint that said for Dominic to stop pointing and putting his fingers in the camera. That apparently you have very long fingers that creep them out.
Noted.
But for me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at ntbaker_. If you go to the link in my bio, it's going to take you to a link tree, which provides you a list of links to all the platforms and podcasts, along with the social media platforms. That includes.
But it's not limited to
the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. It's all on there. There's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor. Shout out to Anchor.
Shout out Anchor.
Above the camera.
Above the camera, yeah.
I
don't want to freak anybody out.
The first link is sending in a voice message. And there's another link on there for becoming a supporter of the podcast. That just provides with a few dollars a month. All that money goes back into improving the quality of the podcast.
Or I can buy gloves.
I'm so sorry, Dom. But that's it. We're out. We're gonna see you all on Friday.
I can't even do my thing now. See you guys.